First tonight, when Ed Crockett looks back at his childhood, he remembers a Portland that had no arts district, no $2 million condos, no tourists paying $1,000 a night to stay in a boutique hotel. Crockett grew up in the gritty, working-class neighborhood of Munjoy Hill, and his early years were not easy.
He brings that era to life in his new memoir, The Ghosts of Walter Crockett. Walter was Ed's father, and he is a crucial character in the book. We met Ed Crockett in Lincoln Park, a place that brings back some dark memories for him, and he told us his remarkable story.
It is no exaggeration to say that when Ed Crockett was growing up in Portland in the 1960s and 70s, he spent nearly all his time in just a couple of square miles between the Eastern Promenade and Monument Square.
And the biggest part of that is we did not have an automobile. My mom never got her license, so she never drove.
His neighborhood, his world, was Munjoy Hill.
Everything was there, the hill of 1960s and 70s. There were hundreds and hundreds of kids running around. So we were at the playground all day or playing ball on the street. There were corner stores on every block. So groceries and things like that were very handy.
Crockett was born in 1961, the youngest of 8 kids. When he was just 2 years old, his father left home and began living on the streets of Portland.
My dad was already well into his alcoholism. He would go MIA for weeks. Usually he'd be locked up 30 days right over there at the Cumberland County Jail.
Your family would not have survived had it not been for government assistance.
Oh, not at all, because we would not have had food on the table or clothing back then.
You write in one point of the book about how you discovered how much money your mom made in a year.
She asked me to help her with her taxes. This was when probably late 70s, early 80s. I looked at the statement and she got $3,000 a year in state support. And I looked at her and I said, Mom, is this all you get? Now, she did get food stamps and things like that to supplement the income. And she looks at me with a big smile on her face and she goes, yeah, that's the most I've ever gotten.
Single mom.
Single mom.
Raising 8 kids.
Yes.
$3,000 a year and then additional government assistance.
That was it.
The picture you paint in the book is really bleak of what it was like when you saw your dad, because he was literally living on the streets, either drunk or hungover or looking for a drink all the time. And what was weird is that you and he were in the same area, so you would bump into him a lot, right?
Yes.
You were down here in Lincoln Park one time to pick up the bus to go to school, and you were with some of your buddies also waiting for the bus, and you saw your dad.
Yeah.
What happened in that particular instance?
Yeah, I remember vividly. It was a spring morning in my freshman year of high school. He was just stumbling into all the circle of kids bumming for money. And he literally staggered into our group, looked me straight in the eye, and asked me for money. He had no idea it was me.
How did you deal with that? As that day went on, how did you deal with that?
Well, I panicked. I didn't know what to do. I turned around and started running all day. Didn't get to school that day. And cried a lot. Was incredibly embarrassed. And I never came back to Lincoln Park to kick the bus.
Walter Crockett, unable to stop drinking, lived on the streets of Portland for 17 years.
It's a miracle that he survived. I mean, he had his last rites 5 times.
You write in the book that your mom is your hero. She kept the family together, somehow kept a roof over your heads, clothes on your back. She had a tough life. She was not without flaws of her own, but she was clearly an extraordinary woman.
She is my hero. I mean, I would not be here today sharing this story without her. She sacrificed everything. She was the most selfless person I've ever known. Everything was for her kids.
Why do you think you were able to build a good life for yourself, given the trauma that you suffered as a kid?
I had the most amazing role models in my mom, in my grandparents, and my 7 older siblings. One thing that was wonderful about my mom is she was the most positive person I may have ever known as well. You know, it was all about encouragement and, you know, checking the boxes, get an education, work hard. I attribute it to that.
What a journey it has been for Ed Crockett. In his personal life, he and his wife have been married for more than 35 years and have 3 children. In his professional life, he's the president of Captain Eli's Soda in Portland and a state representative in the Maine legislature.
After 17 years of living on the streets, drying out in the jail and so forth, your dad finally got sober. And he got a job, eventually got married.
Yeah.
But even then, and by this time you were an adult, your relationship with him was pretty rocky, which is understandable. How did you feel about him at that time in his life and your life?
Well, first and foremost, I was proud of him, that he was able to finally have a life.
The name of the memoir is The Ghosts of Walter Crockett. You still got some ghosts rattling around in your head after all these years?
No, I don't think so. And I will say when my mom passed in 2009, there were no more, there was nothing else to protect. And it allowed me to really, in those final years, to, you know, be the son he wanted. And he became the father I needed.
I asked Ed Crockett to sum up his life, and he said, exact quote, "I've been blessed."
Wow.
And one interesting postscript, after his dad got sober, his dad helped a lot of other people through AA.
Wow.
So it's a story of redemption. It's a story about a lot of things, but it is a real main story and, of course, an extraordinarily powerful one.
Wow, and so touching to hear him talk about his mom and his grandparents and to know that despite everything going on, he had that silver lining to kind of get him through. And look what he did with his life.
Right, he and his siblings, between Ed and his 7 siblings, they have 3 master's degrees, and it's an amazing story.
It really is.
Again, the name of the book is The Ghosts of Walter Crockett. It's published by Island Port Press in Yarmouth.